A very good morning, students. We are back with our structural geology regular class lecture, and the subject is structural geology. And in our previous video, we had mentioned the next video will be on what are all the rock structures. So we are going to see what are all the rock structures and what their influence in studying the geology of any region. Okay, and here are the list of reference which I had used for my preparation of the slides. So, what are all the rock structures? So, before going into what, we should know why to study rock structures, right? Actually, the rock structures record the history of earth process and are fundamental in geology. So, to study about the earth's history, we have only one thing that records everything, that is the rock, right? In the rocks also you can classify them, that you can study in two way. One is in the way of mineralogy or chemical composition, the other is the pattern or structure. Okay, so to study about the earth's history, we have to study the structure as well as composition in the rock, and this heading is based on the structure. So our primary concern is mainly on the structure present in a rock, and the heading is structural geology. So according to structural geology, we classify rocks primarily into two broad categories. One is the non-tectonic structures, that is the structure that has been formed without any direct relationship with the tectonic activity. There could be some sort of passive relationship, but there is no any direct relationship with the tectonic activity. Some of the examples you can see here, like ripple marks, bedding plane, then igneous, what do you call this, columnar joints, all those structures which doesn't have any sort of direct relationship with the tectonic events, right? So this is one type. The second is the tectonic structure. The tectonics you might study about the convergent boundary, divergent boundary, transform faults, right? These type of movements results in some sort of structures. That is what we have more interest. That is the tectonic structure that is formed due to the tectonic activity. So this structure probably had formed due to the convergent activity, right? Primarily due to compression. And here you can see this structure, that is gravity fault, that is Horst and Graben, has been formed due to extensional region. And here you can see that is San Andreas fault, which is a very good example of a transform boundary. So these are the tectonic structures. So according to us, we have two broad categories. One is non-tectonic, which is not having much relationship with the tectonic event. Then the next one is tectonic structure, which is primarily related to some sort of tectonic structures. So do you have this two structure classification or any other else? That will be a question, right? So there are so many classifications and there are so many criteria for the classification of rock structures. We will try to cover some headings in this video. The first one is the geological significance. That is, some structures have some sort of geological significance. The first one is the primary structure, that is the bedding plane. So what is the relation between the bedding plane and the geological significance, right? So if you have a good thick rock with a well spaced bedding plane, which indicates the thickness or the time at which the rock forms that particular rock, that indicates there is no any much tectonic events, right? Or there is, you can say it like, there is no any marine transgression or regression, because as you know, where there is a marine transgression or regression, there will be change in grain size and there will be obviously change in the rock type. So when you have a well spaced bedding plane, which indicates there is no any much change in the geology of the environment, and if you have a comparatively less spaced bedding plane, you can simply say that is due to some sort of a change in geological activities, right? So the first thing of geological significance is the bedding plane, that is the spacing between the bedding plane. You can keep it in that way. The second one is the gravity driven structure. Just like your landslides, we have sudden unsorted sediments in a particular place, right? So that could be due to some sort of gravity driven or turbidity current or anything like that. So that indicates there is some sort of instability on the surface during the formation of that particular rock. So such a kind we can study about the geological setting of a particular rock's history and the time of its formation. So that is also comes under geological significance. The third is the local density inversion. That is just like your salt dome diapers, right? During the formation of a particular salt dome and after that, Due to density contrast, it tries to move up. So that also has some sort of geological significance that it had formed at a particular time, and it indicates like some sort of say marine evaporation, right, that forms a solid structure. Then we have impact structure, which is due to meteoric impact. There are so many in the earth. The best example is the Chicxulub crater, which is well explained as a meteoric crater, right? So that structure is formed due to meteoric impact. So from seeing that structure, dating its age and other properties, we can see the importance and the time, the event that happened at that location, right? We do have a tectonic structures like folds and faults, which have so much geological significance, which indicates the type of convergent boundaries and all those things. So this is one set of classification. Then we do have the other thing, that is the time of formation. So what are the probability, right? The rock structure can be formed during the rock formation, after the rock formation, right? You think these two are the possible things. There is also third thing, that is called panic contemporaneous deformation. That is, since formational structure is one which forms during the rock sedimentation or during the igneous rock formation itself, whereas post formation indicates that is formed due to the some sort of external stress, right? Whereas panic contemporaneous deformation indicates after the sedimentary deposit and before lithification, there is some sort of deformation or rearrangement of the sediments or sedimentary grains particularly, and that sort of deformation or change in the pattern or change in the arrangement of the sediments comes under the heading panic contemporaneous deformation, which is quite interesting heading, which I am planning to make a special video in the upcoming next probably the next video, right? So that time we will discuss what is it, how it is formed and all those things. For right now, you should know the term panic contemporaneous deformation, which indicates that this forms after the deposition of the sediments and before the lithification of it into a rock. Okay, good. So the next classification is based on mesoscopic cohesiveness. Some structures will be same as megascopic as well as microscopic, but sometimes what you see in megascopic structure may not be the same in microscopic structure. So such a kind of relationship can also be used for classification. There are three. One is brittle, as you know, which is breaking down, and the second one is ductile, which is like a moving like a paste, and brittle ductile, which indicates when you are seeing in megascopy it will be brittle, but when you are seeing in microscope that shows some sort of ductile or vice versa. So this is the third criteria for classification of rock structures. Then we have strain significance, like what sort of strain or what sort of structure will show what sort of strain. As we discussed in the tectonic structures, somewhat same like this here, that is, contraction will simply result to some sort of structures like reverse fault, then fold, all those things, and extensions can be expressed by some sort of gravity fault, right? So that structure is an indicator of some sort of strain significance. And strike slip, as we said, it is a San Andreas fault. So this way also we can classify those structures in terms of strain significance. Then we do have distribution of deformation, that is, at some location or at some part of the rock maybe will deform, the other portion may not be disturbed. So this sort of criteria can be used for the rock classification, structural classification, and they are continuous, penetrative, localized and discrete. As you know, continuous will be all along the rock, penetrative will be that is on the surface and also inside the rock. For example, you can say slick and slides, that is a non-penetrative structure that forms only on the surface of the rock. When you are dealing with gneiss-osity or schistosity, you can expect that structure to be extended inside the rock also. So that is penetrativity. Then we have localized, that is only deformed at certain position, just like you are baking of country rock during intrusion, all those things. Then there is some sort of discrete, only isolated at some points only. So this can be a classification which is based on distribution of deformation. Then we have geometry, which you already well know this. You know what? The geometric classification, that is what we studied in our structural geology primarily, based on the geometry of the rock structure. We can broadly classify this into two, that is planar structure as well as linear structure. The planar structure includes geological contact, foliation, bedding plane, igneous layer, cleavage, cystosity, metamorphic banding, gneissic foliation, all those things. And lineation, you can expect fold axis, lineation, L tectonics, all those things. So these are all the different types or different criteria for classification and their subdivisions. So this includes some part of the question which we asked in the earlier, that is the what are all the rock structures. Is that clear? So if you have a doubt, mention in the comment section. We'll try to explain it in the upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.